Hi friends, what if the real blueprint to longevity doesn't cost $2 million a year like Brian Johnson's protocol, but is less than $20? Do you own one of these? This is a weight balance. What if I told you owning one can help you add 12 years to your life? Too good to be true, right? Of course. But this tool, along with 4 simple lifestyle choices, have been shown to add 12 years. No miracle pills, no expensive supplements, no extreme diets, just 4 evidence-based lifestyle rules supported by research. Now today, we're going to break them down in detail to help you understand why longevity countries live longer and healthier lives than we do in America. Let's keep it practical with real-life examples and take a critical look at some popular health trends like keto, carnivore, Atkins, and paleo, and see if they will help you meet these 4 simple choices to help you achieve a longer, healthier life. Keep in mind that you may not have to even work on all 4 of these principles because you may already be living part of a healthy lifestyle. But I'm sure you know people who have lost all their family and friends. So unless you reach out and help your friends and family, you may end up a bit lonely. Listening to these 4 principles is not just to keep you healthy and living longer, but you need to help your community and family and friends too. Now, do you want to start easy or hard? Let's start with the easy thing to do. Get one of these or gift one of these. That's the easy part. And I'll show you how to use this a little bit later to achieve longevity. First, let's get to the hardest thing to do. Quit smoking. Okay, obviously, if you don't smoke, don't start. Many of you have checked off this on your list, but I'm sure you have family or friends who are still smoking. Even though they know it's a dirty habit, literally filling their lungs with black soot, they still can't quit. So please learn the benefits of quitting to share it with them. Share it with your children and grandchildren. I'm sure you'll be surprised at how beneficial quitting smoking can be. If we don't all continue to educate, tobacco will come back because it is that addictive. I have a friend who I've been encouraging to stop smoking for 5 years. She is down to 1 cigarette every other day, which is wonderful because when I first met her, she was smoking 3 packs a day. Quitting smoking is the most powerful step you can take to extend the quality and quantity of your life. Smoking increases your risk of virtually every major disease. Heart disease, stroke, dementia, multiple cancers, lung disease, even diabetes. Now, according to the CDC, smokers pass away 10 years earlier on the average than non-smokers. And I'm sure there are exceptions and you may know some, but most people aren't that lucky. Here's the hopeful part. The benefits of quitting smoking start almost immediately. In 20 minutes, your heart rate and blood pressure will drop. In 12 hours, your carbon monoxide levels normalizes in your blood. In 1 year, your heart disease risk will be cut in half. In 10 years, the risk of dying from lung cancer drops by half, but you don't have to wait 10 years to reduce your risk of cancer. In 2 to 5 years after quitting, you start lowering your risk of mouth, throat, esophageal, and bladder cancer by half. And if you're worried about dementia, your stroke risk drops to that of a person who doesn't smoke. What about that nagging cough and shortness of breath? Well, that will start subsiding as early as a month after quitting. And in 15 years after you quit, your heart disease risks will be the same as someone who doesn't smoke. Quitting nicotine will probably be the hardest thing for you to do. And that's why there are nicotine replacement therapies, including gums, patches, and throat lozenges. They were designed to help people wean off nicotine so that it's not so painful. And it's better than inhaling the soot. Talk to your doctor about medications that can help ease withdrawal. And keep in mind that quitting anything is less successful unless you join a support group, a community to help keep you accountable. And here's another tip. I told my friend to try to think of routines that triggers her urge to smoke. It's important to change your routines to avoid triggering your urges. So for example, if you always smoke with coffee, then maybe switch to tea so that it doesn't trigger you, and consider changing the environment in which you enjoy that drink. And if that doesn't work, go take a cold shower every time you have an urge. So what does this tell you? It tells me that your body is resilient. If you can convince your mind to cut out the poison, your body can heal. Now, I'm focusing on smoking, but in reality, we are surrounded by a sea of toxins, and everybody has addictive habits. That is not smoking, but increases the risk of some form of chronic disease, mental health issues, and cancers. Our country has an opiate crisis. We have drunk drivers and alcohol addiction. And don't get me started on the ultra-processed food explosion and the credit card debt. You may not have these vices, but maybe you enjoy driving through that fast food to get, a boba drink, a coffee latte. We live in an environment where people are unreasonably stuck on data. They want data to prove that the ingredients in candy and sodas are harmful. And what's their incentive? Because they want to make money. And they know it's impossible to definitively prove that the thousands of chemicals in our food supply are actually harmful to our body. Food chemistry has gotten so out of control that we are all eating engineered crap and we call it food. Everybody is so addicted, including doctors. So nobody complains and happily enjoys it. That's why I'm thrilled that RFK Jr. is going to clean up our food supply to make America healthy again. Now, I don't agree with all his ideas. He recognizes that he doesn't have a medical degree, and he said himself, nobody should be taking medical advice from him.
I don't think people should be taking medical advice from me.
I watched a congresswoman grilled him about that statement and called him ridiculous because he is the Health and Human Services Secretary. But I'm not sure she remembers that most Health and Human Services Secretaries are not real medical doctors. And for sure, they're not your doctor. President Biden nominated Mr. Becerra, who was not a medical doctor. So I absolutely agree that we should not be taking medical advice from RFK Jr. We should all be taking medical advice from our own personal medical doctor. So remember, this isn't medical advice. Talk to your own personal medical doctor if you have any questions about anything you see on YouTube, period. I hope RFK Jr. will finally start a movement and put a break on the chemicals in our GRA list. This FDA list has now over 10,000 ingredients long. I find it super interesting that even though there hasn't been one single law passed, companies are already changing their formulations. In-N-Out just announced that they're going to remove artificial food dyes. Their website states quality you can taste. So all this time, they've added artificial food dyes, even though they're telling us that they serve quality ingredients. I've eaten their stuff. I admit it's quite tasty. And my kids, they also love to eat their stuff. A few years ago, there was an In-N-Out burger left on the table. It actually had grilled onions. And we had a puppy at that time who jumped on the table when we weren't looking and basically ate the top muffin, the grilled onions, and the patty. I panicked because onions are toxic to dogs. So I literally called In-N-Out to ask him exactly how many grams of onions do you put on every burger so that I can go and calculate if it was a okay dose for the dog. But they couldn't tell me. So in the end, I just ended up taking my dog to the vet to get her stomach pumped. Now, usually car rides make her puke, but I guess she really liked this burger because she refused to puke. $500 later and a bunch of charcoal later, her stomach was pumped, but it was already too late. She had digested the contents of that burger. Luckily, nothing happened because she probably didn't eat enough of the poison. However, if she ate onions every day, I bet you something would eventually happen. And that is the same with people. If you go and eat whatever processed food, whether it's at a fast food restaurant or you make it at home yourself or you buy it in a supermarket, if you do it once in a blue moon, your body is probably pretty resilient. It's not going to matter a whole lot. But if you eat these foods for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, for your snacks, and you're doing it every day, well, these toxins, they accumulate. They add to each other. And to single out only artificial food dyes will be the biggest mistake RFK Jr. makes because there are so many other ingredients that are actually more toxic than the artificial food dyes. It's not the artificial food dyes that are making people gain weight. It's the caloric nutrients that are colored by the artificial food dyes and allow the food dyes to be in the food. This is what's making people obese with a body mass index of 30 or above. So number 2, reduce your body weight so you're not obese. This is where this balance can help you if you use it daily. This study showed that people who measured themselves 6 or 7 times a week lost more weight than those who only used it once a week. This makes sense. People who take the time to measure their weight every day, they are more concerned and they're more serious about losing weight. And you gain weight every day that you eat. It's not like you don't gain weight just because you don't check. So when you check it on a daily basis and you notice your weight is going up, then if you want to lose weight, you're going to have to eat differently. Now, keep in mind, it's not good to lose more than 1 pound a week, because when you lose too much weight, you're also going to lose a lot of muscle. Keeping your muscle is super important, and we'll get back to that a little later. And I know some of you think that despite being obese, you're super strong and you can outwalk some of your skinnier friends. So if you're comparing yourself to people who are traditionally sedentary, I don't think that's a good marker to judge if you're doing well. It's not good to follow someone who's already not healthy. And I've often said in my other videos that being skinny doesn't mean you're metabolically healthy. Weight by itself can give people a false sense of health. But the bottom line is, it doesn't matter if you're as strong as a sumo wrestler. If you are obese, in terms of collecting and storing fat tissue, you increase your risk of heart disease, diabetes, strokes, sleep apnea, and certain cancers. Talk to your own medical doctor to find out your body mass index. A body mass index of 30 or above is considered obese. And for people of Asian descent, health risk actually increases at lower body mass index levels. According to the World Health Organization Asian Pacific Guidelines, a body mass index of over 23 is actually considered to be overweight, and a body mass index over 27.5 is classified as obese. That's because Asians tend to have higher body fat percentages at lower body mass indexes. They collect visceral fat. It's trapped inside your belly. That is actually the most toxic of all fat tissue, which increases the risk of metabolic diseases. Now, if you want to know your body mass index now, here's a free BMI calculator from the NIH. So what's the best way to lower your body mass index? Number one is food quality. The most important factor in determining whether or not you're going to be able to lower your body mass index and keep it off is food quality. So that brings us to number three. You have to eat a healthy dietary pattern, basically a habit, which will help you lose weight and live 12 years longer than people who don't. Let's face it, losing weight is easy, folks. Keeping it off is hard. And I'm sure you've lost weight to fit in an outfit or go to a party. You probably lost some weight the last time you got sick, right? So it's not difficult to lose weight. We have all lost weight. But how many people actually can lose weight and keep it off for life? Not many. Many people bounce back and forth, yo-yoing their diet, and they actually bounce back heavier than before. And I know people who have had private coaches exercising them. You know, unless you exercise like a hummingbird every day, you're not going to be able to keep up with the amount of food that you eat if you're eating ultra-processed food. And we know it's not just about calories, because everybody has tried to calorie count. It doesn't work. So when we just focus on calories and still persistently eat bad food, we are missing micronutrients that your body craves. And when your body is missing something, it's going to make you eat more food. This is where food quality with nutrient-dense foods can help you keep your weight off if you eat low-calorie, nutrient-dense foods. This can help you live longer and healthier. This needs to be in everybody's longevity diet. So what are the 3 rules? Number 1, eat lots of fruits and vegetables. It's recommended that people eat at least 5 servings a day. But you know, dietary recommendations is really like the minimum achievement point. So it's like getting a grade C to pass your grade. You really want a grade C to live life, or do you want to go for the A+ to be the healthiest you can be? So the more fruits and vegetables you eat, the higher your GPA for your dietary habits. This translates into a higher longevity index. The second rule is to add whole grains. But this doesn't mean just go and buy any old bread or to go fill yourself up with cereals. It's important that you read the back of your labels to make sure that you're actually getting whole grains and not refined starches with chemical additives that you can't pronounce and it looks nothing like food. Right? Step 1, make sure you're actually eating whole grains. So most of the bread on the market are full of processed refined grains. And really we're harmfully restricting our bread and carbohydrates to just a starch of 1 plant, wheat. There are tons of other grains that we should be eating that we're not eating. And one of the best whole grains is rye. Have you ever had rye? Rye has lignans that protect you from cancer. Or maybe you can try whole oats, oat groats, that has beta-glucan soluble fibers that have been shown to reverse people's diabetes and lower blood sugar levels. In America, we eat the remnants of one grain, wheat, the starch of wheat, and all the nutritious parts of the wheat, the germ and the bran, they're given to livestock. Isn't that ironic? And do you know why they're given to livestock? Because they're super nutritious. So we're left with the refined bleached starch full of gluten that gives you the fluffiness and the texture that you desire, like pastries and Hawaiian bread. That's what's getting us all sick. Have you seen what they put in those products? They hide colors and flavors and sugars and fats. You remember playing with Play-Doh when you combine different colors to make food? I feel like that's what our processed food companies are doing. They start with the wheat gluten, they manipulate it, make it fluffy, colorful, and then they start folding fat to give it its textures and layers, different kinds of oils, and they add the sugars, then they add more colors and artificial flavors. Look at your breakfast, lunch, and dinner options. I'm sure there's some colorful artificial ingredients there, along with some ultra-refined wheat. I mean, these are junk foods with junky, low-quality foods. And if you turn it around, I betcha right after the wheat is the word sugar, and it ends with preservatives and food dyes.
Hi, friends. I am so thrilled that you want to take charge of your health and take charge of your food. Now, I know nutrition can be complex, but it doesn't have to be. And I'm here to support you in this lifelong journey. So if you point your camera app to this QR code, it'll take you to a link for a free handout that I created just for you. And if you like it, if you want to see other handouts, please go to the link in my show notes, and then you can leave me your feedback on what I could do to help you in your journey. Okay, back to the video now.
And the reason why you can't quit is because we are surrounded by junk everywhere. Today, I went to a home and school meeting for my son's high school. One of the moms brought cinnamon rolls, and so many people commented on how it was so delicious. It looked delicious. It was fluffy. There was icing. It was brown cinnamon. One mom even dipped it in her coffee, and I'm sure that tasted delightful. But ultra-processed food filled with fat and sugar, whether it's homemade, made by a supermarket, or bought by a bakery, is still going to be toxic to your mitochondria, despite the fact that they taste great. When you eat, your brain doesn't always make you eat good stuff, right? Good tasting stuff, yes, but not necessarily good for you, healthy stuff. And really, you can't mess up sugar, fat, and starch, right? And for many people, minimizing junk food and getting rid of it is actually harder than quitting nicotine. I mean, everybody, after all, has to eat. Every house, every store, every corner seems to have some kind of sugar, starch, and fat combination to serve to you. And if you just made one rule, which is not eat any more refined grains, some people call it gluten-free, you will be surprised at how inconvenient it is to find whole grain food so that you can eat it. And just by doing that one rule will elevate your food quality and restrict yourself to not eat so much junk. You'll notice that you'll be losing weight and you'll get metabolically healthier. Keep in mind, it's not good to avoid whole grains like the paleo diet, because when you eat whole grains, you're not just getting beneficial fiber. You're getting fiber in a food matrix that slows down your metabolism so that starch isn't released suddenly. You're also eating a longevity protein called spermidine in that wheat germ. They feed that to livestock, ironically. But when you eat whole grains, you're allowing your body to fulfill your caloric needs and the addiction to the taste of carbohydrates. Only in modern times have we belittled our food quality to think of it as just a bunch of nutrients put together. The rest of the world treats food as medicine. They prize leaves, stems, roots, stamens, spices. These ingredients heal their people. But in the US, we judge food by how it tastes. Breads and pastries are the most popular foods because people simply like the taste. But you know what may taste good is not so good for you. And hence, it's really important to have a replacement for that taste you crave. It's probably the texture that you crave if you're going to give up ultra-processed carbohydrates. These carbohydrates give you the taste of chewiness, crunchiness, softness that you will miss if you completely just quit cold turkey, like on a carnivore or ketogenic diet. That's partially why people quit the keto, carnivore, paleo diets. They find themselves missing the taste of carbohydrates. I was overweight for most of my childhood until I learned how to change my dietary habits by replacing the textures and tastes that I loved. I tried counting calories like you, but I would go hungry. And I yo-yoed between low carb and low fat diets, but I easily got bored with either side. And I realized I was sacrificing essential nutrients because I would give up nutrient-dense foods so I can eat sugary desserts to count it for my carbs or my fats. Ultimately, my food was getting me sick, leaving me feeling unwell, and I was frankly bored. So I would go back to eating some of my old food, and then I gained the weight back. And food is just like medications. As soon as you stop, the benefits go away. And the wrong foods are like poisons. Eating less poisons doesn't mean you're not going to still get poisoned. And when you pick a diet that eliminates your favorite tastes, your textures, essential micronutrients that your body needs to be healthy, that's a perfect recipe of failure because your brain will make you give it up or your body will make you give it up. And sometimes both. This is why fad diets don't work. Anything that you don't make into a habit and enjoy just simply won't last. Any addiction that you don't address will cause your diet failure. My biggest vices were white rice, bread, and desserts. Carbohydrates. I love that carbohydrate texture. And I didn't quit all of these textures at once. It actually took me several years before I could transition off these textures. Really, before I realized that I was addicted to textures. This is why rice and bread are staple foods for millions of people. And desserts are too. We all love how they taste and feel. And for years, I convinced myself that white rice was healthy. And it was actually a whole grain until I learned that it wasn't healthy and it wasn't a whole grain. When I was small, my most favorite food was a giant bowl of white rice drizzled with the sauce from my mom's curry chicken. Unfortunately, that curry chicken was full of chicken fat, saturated chicken fat, which inhibited my metabolism from metabolizing the rice I was eating. I was overeating the rice. And hence, I started getting bigger. Now, my mom didn't gain weight for a long time because she enjoyed white rice with just soy sauce. However, she did have high blood pressure with all that salt, which ultimately contributed to her dementia, but she wasn't overweight. However, in terms of carbohydrate metabolism and insulin resistance, that soy sauce would have been much better and healthier than the chicken fat. That's how addictive rice is. Everybody can cater it to their own favorite flavors to eat it. Ironically, white rice by itself, it doesn't cause weight gain. Who eats plain white rice? Very few people, right? Only those locked up in an institution. And the rice diet was indeed tried in people and helped them to lose weight, reverse their high blood pressure. But history has proven that eating a restrictive white rice diet is not only unhealthy, but it's potentially fatal. A lot of people in that study didn't actually make it. And white rice took the mighty Japanese army down and gave thousands of people beriberi and Wernicke's encephalopathy. This is because white rice is not a nutritious food. It's essentially just starch. It's missing fiber, it's missing protein, it's missing essential critical vitamins. Ironically, that was removed from the original brown rice that was milled into white rice. And for those of you who are Asian, you can't believe your ears, right? You know white rice has been eaten for thousands of years. Yeah, by elite, wealthy Asians, not by the commoners. That didn't happen until machines were invented to process the brown rice. So how did countries address this nutrient deficiency? Well, people like the US, we decided to fortify white rice with some vitamins. But adding some vitamin powder to ultra-processed food, it doesn't make it a health food. The texture is incredibly irresistible, whether it's white rice just boiled in water or gummified into mochi. Those are both yummy foods, hard to resist, but I finally did it. Literally, it contributed to my gestational diabetes. And here's what I did to wean myself out of white rice when I was pregnant. I mean, that's how crappy my diet was a couple of decades ago. At the time, I didn't understand how to correct my gestational diabetes without cutting my carbohydrates. I went with my doctors who made me go see a dietitian. Unbelievable. They actually tried to get me to eat processed, junky, fake, sugary foods full of fat. I couldn't believe my ears. And they wanted me to eat artificial flavors and colors and full fat stuff to control my blood sugars. And all that sounded kooky. So I took it upon myself to take a deep dive into food and nutrition, and I fixed my gestational diabetes without adding all those artificial stuff. There were no drugs, just diet and movement. I literally lost 30 pounds of weight while I was pregnant with my first child. And all my kids were born healthy, around 6 pounds. My motivation was not to suffer in labor. So I gave up white rice at that time. but I needed something to eat with my foods that wasn't starchy, but would still give me a soft texture like white rice. And that's when I turned to soft tofu. Tofu is great. It's bland, it has protein, it has calcium, and it's so easy. You can just heat it up and then eat it with any other side dishes. Now, granted, it doesn't quite taste like starch, but it has a little bit of that texture for me, and it's bland, and I needed something bland with that soft texture to eat my foods. And my goal was to get my blood sugars ASAP to normal, so I was very motivated to get rid of all the ultra-fine processed carbohydrates in my diet. I was also in fellowship, so I had very little time to think about how to make my food. I barely got myself to work. So I had to think of convenient, easy, just simple heat and eat foods that will nourish my body, my child, and to correct my gestational diabetes. So soft tofu was my replacement for rice. Now, the second texture that I missed when I gave up refined carbohydrates was a chewy texture, like gummy and mochi. I really love chewy textures. That's probably why I used to love chewing gum so much, but it gave me TMJ pain, so I had to stop chewing gum. And that's when I realized dried whole fruits are really chewy. Have you ever had a dried banana, apricot, or date? They're really chewy. But it's important to get the ones without added sugar and preservatives. Too many dried fruits have a ton of added sugar. That's just gonna skyrocket your weight. Or they say all natural and they process fruit juice to add the sugar. I mean, essentially they're adding more fructose. So I only eat dried fruit that looks like it's literally dried and not processed, but no added sugar or added juice. Don't buy the dry fruit that's pulverized and processed and baked into a fruit roll-up. Get the ones that are intact and you're chewing through the skin to get to the inside. They are the ones that are healthier, and avoid those bright and colorful ones. Most likely they have some kind of preservative and possibly even food dyes. Now, the third texture that I missed was creamy textures. I missed ice cream, and I tried to lose weight by eating low-fat ice cream, or by eating low-calorie ice cream, or by eating low-sugar ice cream. None of it worked. None of it helped get my palate off the addiction of ice cream. And it was getting me metabolically more unhealthy. Processed foods just don't help you lose weight because you have to eat that food for the rest of your life. And those things are not only expensive, they're junky, they change your gut microbiome, they just make you more addictive to more junky food. So to make up for that soft, creamy texture, I actually started pulverizing cooked beans. I literally will buy canned beans, black beans, white beans, garbanzo, red beans. I rinse it and then I pulverize it until it's creamy. I will add fruit and dates to it and flavor it with cocoa powder. Sometimes I'll add it and make it like a chocolate pudding. And if I freeze it, it becomes ice creamy. And that's where my tofu hack comes in. If I just put dry fruit and cocoa powder and pulverize it with the tofu, it's a delicious pudding for me that I can make up really quickly without giving me the spikes of carbohydrates or the fat. You'll be amazed at how soft and creamy the texture of beans come out when you whip it up. That's why some people use beans to replace the texture of fat when they bake. I started adding some whipped beans to sauces to thicken it, and if I want to make something creamy. And the benefits of adding beans is, number one, it's a high protein food that's nutrient dense. It's been shown to help people lose weight and control their blood sugars. In fact, unlike eating artificial sweeteners and low calorie sweeteners that disrupt your gut microbiome, and by the way, can actually make you gain weight, eating beans helps to lower blood sugars, it helps to lower insulin, and it nourishes your gut microbiome with beneficial fibers and polyphenols to make you and them healthier. And when you eat beans, your gut microbiome makes metabolites or postbiotics such as short-chain fatty acids like butyrate, as well as neurotransmitters like serotonin to keep your gut and metabolism healthy. And this comes to the next dietary pattern that is associated with longevity: minimize meat. It's easy to tell people to minimize meat, but in reality, it's pretty hard to do because in the United States, people eat more meat than any other country in the world. And guess what? We are not a longevity country. We rank in the 40s, despite the fact that we spend the most amount of money per capita for healthcare. If you think good quality protein is expensive, then you're not buying the right kind of protein. Have you seen how cheap a bag of dried beans are? They are one of the most sustainable, highest quality, most transportable most nutritious, protein-rich foods on earth. Half a cup of cooked beans is just 100 calories. Half a cup of ground beef is 300 calories. So you're eating more calories, 3 times as much compared to beans when you eat beef. Hence, when you switch some of your meat to beans, you can lower your weight because you're simply eating less calories. You're also eating quite a bit of fiber. And keep in mind, when you're eating fiber-rich foods, you're not absorbing 100% of your calories. Many people falsely believe that eating high-protein plant foods like beans is actually less superior and lower quality than eating meat like beef. Hence, people eat the carnivore diet. But when you do that, you're not following one of the longevity pillars, and that's to eat more fruits and vegetables, right? Eating more plants. And you really just need to replace 10% of your animal protein to plant protein to get tremendous amount of benefit. So high protein foods are basically in the seeds of plants. Beans, legumes, nuts. But between beans, legumes, and nuts, beans are the best low calorie, high protein, high fiber foods that you can eat. But eating beans is a training exercise. You can't just go and eat a bowl of chili and feel good if you've never eaten beans before. Sometimes you may need some digestive enzymes to help your transition. But I think of eating foods, especially fiber, as exercise. Gotta practice. You don't just go wake up one day and lift 100 pounds, right? Normally people start with low dumbbell weights like 1 pound, 3 pound, and over time you build up to double-digit weights. So I recommend that people start just as slowly. 1 bean a day. Don't overload your gut with fiber. When you do that, you feel bloated, distended, uncomfortable. Then you tell yourself, oh, it doesn't make me feel good, so then you quit. And that's another reason why people eat more meat, or they go to a carnivore diet. But when you eat more red meat, you increase your risk of diabetes, weight gain, and toxins like endotoxins that get into your bloodstream because of the high saturated fat. All meat has a lot of saturated fat, whether we're talking about beef, chicken, or pork. And when you eat these meats, especially on a regular basis, you're telling your body to turn off carbohydrate metabolism. So the endotoxin makes you feel bad because it causes inflammation, and then you turn off your carbohydrate metabolism that causes a rise in insulin, so that when you do eat carbohydrates, you don't tolerate it as well. And I mentioned before that your carbohydrate metabolism shuts off when you have fat present. So this is why when you starve yourself and then you introduce carbohydrates, you also have a super high insulin response and get super high blood sugars because you mobilize your own fat stores when you're in starvation mode. And the presence of fat inhibits your mitochondria from processing carbohydrates. And this has been shown a long time ago in people who were tested on 4 different diets. One diet just ate all sugar, even highly refined sugars like breads and sugary desserts and candy. Another diet was just pure fat, creams and oils. Another diet was really in lean proteins. And the last was fasting, no diet at all. And then they gave these folks a carbohydrate challenge. And guess who had the highest blood sugars? People who didn't eat. Like I said, they're mobilizing their own stored fat. And then people who ate fat. And biologically, this makes sense. It's like having a hybrid car. You don't really want your car to use electricity and gas simultaneously. That's just going to waste energy. This is why your gas doesn't kick in until your electricity is used up. And likewise, if you have fat, fat signals your body to shut off carbohydrate. So then what do you do with all the sugar? You can't store it as carbohydrate. You store it as fat. And hence, when you eat a mixed diet that's high in fat and high in sugar, not only do you overeat calories, but you become insulin resistant, and that's how you gain weight. Insulin is a growth hormone. Now, you can count calories, which we all know doesn't work. Or you can change your quality of your food and not make it so difficult for you to avoid that combination. And when you increase your food quality, you automatically increase your fiber. You keep it intact by eating original whole food. That's packed with nutrients that your body craves. That automatically controls your calories because they're usually low fat. So you're filling your bucket with essential vitamins, antioxidants, and minerals to help you achieve that longevity. And that's why the carnivore diet, it won't help you do that. The other problem with like keto and paleo is that people don't realize that glucose is an essential molecule for life. You don't have to literally eat glucose to make glucose. The proteins that you're eating through a process called gluconeogenesis to make glucose. But that's not easy for your body to do. And that's why elite professional athletes, they do not go on low carb diets. When you process protein, there's actually a lot of waste products that's made. Your body still has to do something with all that trash. Nitrogen is very toxic. Every single protein has nitrogen. When proteins are broken down, those particles are called amino acids. And then they have to deaminate that amino acid, the nitrogen group, the amino group. Most amino acids transfer their amino group to alpha-ketoglutarate, forming glutamate and a corresponding alpha-keto acid. And this reaction is catalyzed by aminotransferases in the liver, such as ALT and AST. So people with damaged livers generally have leaky aminotransferases. And we can measure ALT and AST to assess how inflamed your liver is. When your liver is too inflamed, when it's hardened, when it's almost dying, then those enzymes are no longer produced, so that those people don't have a high ALT, AST levels. Glutamate then releases free ammonia via glutamate dehydrogenase. Now, ammonia, the stuff that you clean your windows with, that's generally toxic. That's toxic to your brain. So you don't want to sniff that when you're cleaning your window. The body must rapidly detoxify it. Hence, the more protein you eat, especially branched-chain amino acids, which have more nitrogen, then the more burden you're giving your liver. So a high animal protein diet gives you more ammonia. Ammonia then enters a urea cycle, then converts it to urea, which is a non-toxic compound excreted in your urine. Making urea is dependent upon a healthy mitochondria. Now, if you can't detoxify that ammonia, that can actually alter your brain. It can actually make you go in a coma and basically pass away. So this is another reason why diets high in animal protein, such as Atkins, paleo, low carb, they're not healthy. And oftentimes these diets will eliminate fruit and whole grains and beans. These are the exact foods that everybody needs for longevity. And keep in mind, we don't need to eat them refined. We're not talking about apple pie here. We're talking about eating whole foods, a whole apple, unprocessed, no sugar, no caramel dip, no fat. And this takes us to another fat diet called the ketogenic diet. Now, the reality is most people don't like it. It's not sustainable. And therefore, they ultimately think they start off as a ketogenic diet, but they end up eating a high-fat, high-carb diet, the worst diet you can eat. And unfortunately, they count junky carbs as carbohydrates. They're just eating maybe a little bit less than before. However, if you design your ketogenic diet based on whole food plants, it would be so much healthier. But you have to make sure you get your fat right. If you don't get your fat right, you'll be raising your risk of heart disease. So you have to monitor your blood lipids. Any diet that increases low-density lipoprotein cholesterol will be very risky for heart disease. Now, I know there's a whole big debate about that, which I'll address in another video. But let's talk about the last pillar that everybody can do that's not controversial, and that's movement. You have to move your body at least 30 minutes a day. You don't have to do it all at 30 minutes. You don't have to pay for a gym membership. You just need to walk multiple times. Maybe you can take walks up and down your stairs, or you can go to the store or the park, or park further away when you go shopping. And then when you're shopping, just walk a couple laps before you start buying groceries. Now, the most beneficial time to walk is after you eat. If you just spend 2 minutes after every snack, every meal to walk, you can actually dramatically reduce the blood sugar levels for the entire duration of the meal. Just 30 minutes of moderate movement daily can dramatically lower your risk of premature demise. According to the World Health Organization, physical inactivity is the fourth leading risk factor for global mortality. If you can move every day, at least 30 minutes a day, you can reduce the risk of heart disease by 35%, lower your risk of depression by 30%, improve your insulin sensitivity and blood pressure, enhance your brain function and memory to help you protect yourself from dementia. And if you have dementia, it can slow down your progression. My mom had dementia, and my brother walked her every single day after work, just in the house for at least 30 minutes to an hour. Sometimes he would take her to walk around the neighborhood. And when I would visit, I would take her to the mall because that was her favorite thing to do, shopping. Now, of course, she always wanted to buy everything in the store, so I had to figure out how to distract her so that she could keep moving. And sometimes before arriving at the mall, I would stop by a park, and I would basically coerce her to go look at the flowers. She loved plants, and we would go walk around in the park before we would go to the mall. Unfortunately, just asking people who are demented to walk is not going to be the most appealing thing to do if they don't already have the habit of doing it. That's why weaving it into an activity that they enjoy is a more peaceful way to get your loved ones to move. Now, if you're trying to get yourself to be more active, you can go stationary biking, Tai Chi, dancing, Pilates. There's so many things that you can choose from that doesn't involve any membership fees to a club, right? You can just turn on some music and dance in front of the mirror or in your kitchen. Now, I picked up Pilates and it has made me stronger, more balanced, and my whole goal is to not fall. And you can achieve that goal from doing yoga and Tai Chi or just watching YouTube videos. And if you aren't already moving, you're actually going to have the greatest benefit when you just start. And remember, you don't have to do 30 minutes all at once. You can space it out 3 times a day. In fact, just doing squats can replace your walking. My friend walks up and down stairs whenever she feels anxious because she knows her blood pressure is going up at that time. And so she checks her blood pressure right before she walks her stairs and then at the end. And she notices that it can help keep her blood pressure low for several hours. And it's super important not to overthink movement. You don't have to pay for memberships or do something extreme. But it's always more fun with a buddy. And walking is the safest activity that anyone can do with the least amount of injury. And you'll notice that as you become more active, you'll make better food choices. And eventually, you'll get in the habit and neither will be a chore to do. Now, the goal is not to achieve perfection, but just to develop better habits. And no matter your age, and your preferences right now, just little changes every day can lead us to a healthier, longer life. And remember, not all foods are created equal. And you want to learn the most powerful foods to eat, watch the next video.